Charlotte, you and I have talked about this offline. I mean, the Republicans love to fear-monger. That's their currency. It galvanizes people to vote based on fear, not on facts. I always like to say, don't vote on feelings, vote on facts. Ground our viewers right now on why making trans people the boogeyman is just something that the Republicans want to do right now. And to your point, they're going to move on from that, and they're going to make another group targeted, and the next round of fear-mongering continues.
That gets right to the heart of it. So there are two things. First of all, according to polling, most Americans believe they don't personally know a trans person, which makes it a lot easier to be bystanders when the trans community is attacked. The second thing, of course, is that only one party is really talking about trans issues. It's the Republican Party. They've made trans issues one of their central topics in campaigning and the national discourse, what have you. The more the Democrats ignore this, the more it's going to come back to haunt us in future elections. Republicans are not going to let up on this. They're not going to leave it alone. They're not going to stop this, and we're going to suffer. And here's what I find ironic about all this. It's very easy to fight back on trans issues. The science is on our side. Every credible medical organization has come out and endorsed gender-affirming care and said that the trans military ban is ridiculous and unnecessary. They've said that trans women should be housed in women's prisons. I mean, these are all policies that make sense if you're willing to fight back. But the more we don't fight back, the more Republicans are going to engage in bad faith and run up a score on Democrats. And I think we all deserve better.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about more Democrat Party infighting, because as I told you guys, the Democrat Party, which is a far left party, is currently being taken over by the far, far, far left. Okay. And the far, far, far left does not want the current far left Democrat Party to become more centrist or to move to the right. However, there are some Democrats, like, for example, Rahm Emanuel, who is the former mayor of Chicago and also an ambassador to Japan. He is coming out and saying that, hey, Democrats need to become a little bit more centrist, right? Democrats need to move to the right. It's not okay to just stay where we're at, right? We're a little bit too far left. We need to move to the right. And he has went on show after show after show, basically saying that, hey, Democrats, you guys are going in the wrong direction by continuing to go more further left and to worry about some of these issues, like, for example, these cultural issues, like trans issues, that are turning people off.
I read that the current mayor of Chicago has an approval rating of 6.6%.
Round it up, so.
Okay. But I mean, you were just the ambassador to Japan. If that was your approval rating in Japan, they would do harakiri on live TV.
They would do it at 27.
I mean, what's going on in Chicago as the person?
Look, I mean, we were talking about this a little earlier. I mean, you have also the mayor of New York not doing well. Obviously, other things also here in Los Angeles not doing well, the mayor here. Look, and then you got mayors, like the mayor of San Francisco and other cities that are doing well. So I would say, look, there is a general rule. I had this when I was mayor. Safe streets, strong schools, stable finances. Focus on those three things and your city's going to be fine. We've gone through 5 years where people became way too permissive of the culture. They were all, which is why everything's locked up at Walgreens and CVS, and that is a disaster. Yeah. And our school, and I'll say this about our schools. I don't want to hear another word about the locker room. I don't want to hear another word about the bathroom. You better start focusing on the classroom. I agree. We had the worst reading scores for 8th graders in 30 years. And nobody, not a governor, not a mayor, not a president, not a secretary of education is talking about it. We're all wrapped up. Look, in 7th grade, if I known that I could have said the word they and got in the girls' bathroom, I would have done it. We literally are a superpower. We're facing off against China with 1.4 billion people, and 2/3 of our children can't read 8th grade level. But so no more about the lot. Wait a second, I'm on a roll for a second. Yeah. No more. I don't want to hear. I gave him the light. But I don't want to hear another word about the classroom. I don't want to hear another word about the bathroom until you tell me what you're going to do with the classroom. Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
But I think, to be fair, this is actually...
I was being fair.
No, this is a huge Democratic Party problem. If you look at Democratic cities, they are terribly run. They have incredibly high taxes. It is impossible to build, so the cost of housing. Let me finish. I'll give you a chance. Cost of housing is crazy in places like New York and Chicago. If you look at Democratic states, you go look at New York versus Florida, okay? Roughly the same population. The budget of New York State is twice that of Florida. What do they have? Streets paved with gold? I live in New York. I pay the highest taxes in New York. You get nothing for it. And I think that is the image people have of the Democratic Party. Lots of taxes, lots of regulation, but nothing gets done.
Hey, and I live in L.A.
Right. And I think, listen, if the Democrats have to own this and realize the answer to everything is not more taxes, more regulation. People are fed up of that, and they feel that it isn't working.
Yeah, so again, this type of rhetoric really pisses off the far-left Democrats. Like, for example, Brandon Johnson, woke mayor Brandon Johnson, who has an approval rating in the single digits, okay, the mayor of Chicago, he came out and he got real heated at Rahm Emanuel for his criticisms of the Democrat Party and the far-left agenda. Take a look.
Like the playbook that Donald Trump is running is a playbook that Rahm Emanuel executed in this city. And, we didn't get here because we just happened to have a tyrant in the White House. We got here because someone gave him the script. And the shutting of schools, the firing of black women, privatizing our public education system is why the system is as jacked up as it is today. And yes, we have to ask more, but we have to also be clear about how we got here. The Emanuel administration had immense disdain for public education, and particularly black, brown, and poor children. And he was vocal about it. He told one of my heroes, Sheroes, that 25% of children won't become anything. Those are his words directly to Karen Lewis. And now he is prancing around this country asking people to reconsider him. It is not just frustrating, it is beyond offensive. Now, again, to your question, it won't be enough until every single child has everything that they need in this city. And I'm going to fight with everything in me to ensure that happens.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, okay? Rahm Emanuel may or may not run in a Democrat primary, okay, as the centrist Democrat. Now, he's been going on these podcasts, and let's just say that the liberals are not okay with some of the criticisms that Rahm Emanuel has for the Democrat Party. Like, for example, we have Miss Jennifer Welch, who is a woke Democrat Party activist, okay, who is going to get mad at Rahm Emanuel for, again, telling the truth about how this issue, the cultural issues, particularly the trans issue, is not a popular issue for the Democrats, and they need to stop talking about it if they want to win. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this woman losing her mind over a little bit of truth for the Democrat Party.
And I do think the Democrats should stand up not only to fight for their own principles, but to also fight for the people we represent. And for too often, on a whole host of cultural issues, we're off on tangential things that didn't matter to them. Their kids' education, the price of groceries, security of their children's education, the security of their parents. People were missing medications and doctor visits because they couldn't afford them. Things that we broke faith with them on. And so I'm not against fighting, but I want to make sure we're not just fighting for the sake of fighting, but fighting for the sake that people know what we care about, what's in our soul, and what our North Star is. And we ended up fighting for the wrong things. I got to be honest with you. I mean, I was sitting over in Japan for the last 3 years as ambassador. And I learned a lot about Japan. I learned a lot about the Pacific, but I'll tell you
eating sushi, having a good time, and then all this shit's going on over here. Shit's blowing up.
But you want to know something? Being away from America, you learn a lot about America.
Yeah.
And I will just tell you, we looked mighty strange.
Yeah.
Having some of the arguments. We had the luxury of being a superpower. We're having superfluous arguments about things that didn't matter to people. We became not a party that was built on the culture of acceptance, but a party that became an advocate for certain things that, in my view, were just nuts. Nuts. Right. And they weren't core. Now, look, I think you pick. So you say to me, fight. Tell me what we're going to fight about. Because I'm not interested in fighting about.
I'll tell you what I think.
I'll tell you this. I said this just a minute ago to somebody else. We were really south on kitchen table issues. We weren't really good about the family room issues.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you 100%.
Okay, the only room we were do really well was the bathroom. And that's the smallest room in the house.
That is such bullshit. That is total bullshit. That is buying into the right-wing media narrative. And I'm so sick of Democrats like you selling out and saying this. You know who talks about trans people more than anybody? MAGA. MAGA is the most genital-obsessed political party I have ever seen. Kamala Harris talked about homeownership. She talked about kitchen table issues. Trump's over there droning on about Hannibal Lecter. Are you kidding me? This is where the Democrats lose because we're playing the game with the rule book. They've ripped the rule book up and are cramming it down everybody's throat. And Democrats are upset because Joe Biden pardoned his son. We got to fucking fight. They're the gender-obsessed weirdos, not us. We're the ones who fight for Social Security. We fight for Medicare. And yeah, we're not going to bully trans people. We're not going to fucking do it. Fine.
Hey, let me say this. As mayor, 2016, I dealt with the bathroom issue. It's just not my most important issue. It was dealt with, and I appropriately dealt with marriage equality, as I said.
Well, it's certainly important to the Republicans. For me, it's just important not to bully them. And I think this is the death knell
I'm not
of the
disagreeing.
Democrats. It upsets me. It upsets me so much because we live here in this red state, and you see the damage of it. When I see politicians that are supposed to be leaders in the Democratic Party buy into the narrative that Republicans have defined us by, instead of fighting and saying, you're the weirdos that are obsessed with it. Yeah, we're not going to bully some trans kid. And we buy into their narrative. It's why I think we lose. And I have to live in a state where rape victims can't get an abortion because of this bullshit. And so I'm going to fight till the bitter end, and I'm not going to let some MAGA moron define what progressive values are. And I think it's a really dangerous precedent, Mr. Emanuel. I'm sorry, but I have to push back. And I'm
given
not
how
some
much you talk about
elite
living in
liberal.
Listen, I'm happy. Where you choose to live, but I just got to be honest with you. You keep talking about living in this red state craziness. You know, there is U-Haul if you want to move out, but I would just tell you this. My view is there's a whole set of issues, and these are side tangential issues. They're not core, and they're not core to what we believe in. And if you go through presidential history, you go through working for President Biden, President Obama, President Clinton, or President Kennedy, we never got sidetracked on a set of issues. Our main focus was education, economic vitality, and the American dream. And that's where we're going to make our bread and butter.
Well, yeah. So you see that, you heard that. Okay. So this woman got upset because Rahm Emanuel is basically saying, listen, the bathroom stuff, right, AKA the trans issue, we got to let it go. Right? We got to let it go. And see, here's the thing. I love how you have these Democrats that come out here and pretend to be centrists. I don't think Rahm Emanuel is a centrist. I think he's just a liberal, right? He's probably like in Bill Maher's lane, right? And that's fine, right? But it's not just enough to say, hey, let's not talk about it. We need to let it go. No, you have to actively be against the woke agenda that's being pushed from the left. That's what, see, even the so-called centrists don't realize. But see, here's the thing. You can't even just say in the Democrat Party, hey, this issue is not a winning issue for us. We need to let it go, without these people on the far left, people like this woman, getting super upset, claiming that, well, you're trying to bully trans kids, right? So basically, trying to protect biological women in sports is bullying trans kids, right? Or trying to keep women's locker rooms for biological women only. Well, you're bullying trans kids. That's how they frame the issue. But that's not the way the American people see this, okay? That's not the way they see it. And poll after poll after poll has shown that this is just a bad issue for Democrats.
I think these numbers are really illuminating on this topic because I just think there's such a clear trend among the American public. So transgender female athletes in women's sports, only 18% of the country says that they should be, in fact, allowed to participate in women's sports. Compare this to the opposition. I mean, my goodness gracious, 79%. You rarely get 79% of the country to agree on anything, but they do, in fact, agree on the idea of opposing transgender female athletes in women's sports. But it's not just the here and now, Laura. It's not just the here and now. What we're actually seeing is a trend on this particular issue, and it's going in the direction of opposition. So take a look here. Okay, transgendered female athletes, and amongst those Americans who oppose them in women's sports. Back in 2021, it was 62%. A majority, but, you know, not anywhere close to a ginormous majority, right? A clear majority, but not a ginormous majority. But then again, you look here in 2025, you see it at 79%. So it's not just that the majority of Americans are opposed to transgender female athletes in women's sports. It's that the opposition has become considerably larger in just the last 4 years.
And this is why Democrats can't weasel their way out of this issue, okay? Because they're stuck between a rock and a hard place in the sense that if you don't agree with the progressive left 100%, then you see how upset they get, right? You just saw it. Lady lost her mind over the dude saying, well, listen, we shouldn't be focused on these issues like that because they don't really help us, which he's correct about that. However, Rahm Emanuel is not going further enough and saying, no, we actually should focus on the issues. We should focus on being against the woke agenda, right? Like we should actively be against biological boys competing against biological girls in sports. We should actively be for protecting women's spaces. That's exactly what we should be doing. But see, Democrats don't go that far, right? They want to just take a hands-off approach. And that hands-off approach is not enough because it means that you're complicit, especially when you have the Democrats actively in Congress voting against protecting women in sports, right? When you are voting against the American people, it's not enough for you to take a hands-off approach and say, well, we're just not going to talk about it. No, you have to actively be against the woke agenda. That's it. And if you're not, then you're for it. Okay, it's really that simple. And again, that's what the so-called centrists, who are not really centrists, again, they are left, okay? They're just not that far left. Like Rahm Emanuel, that is what they don't realize in the sense that they're right. This issue is hurting the Democrat Party, but they're not correct about the reason why, right? The reason why is because you're not pushing back against the woke agenda. It is not enough to be, quote unquote, neutral, right? You cannot be neutral because we know that type of neutrality just gives away to the far left, right? That means, hey, if the far left wins, they win. If the right wins, they win. It's like, no, that's not enough. You have to be against it, right? You have to be on the side of the American people. But again, if they do that, right, if they go to the right on this issue or they remain neutral, they get a ton of backlash from the left. But again, if they remain neutral and they refuse to go to the right, then again, they look complicit with the far left. So that's why a lot of these so-called centrists that are afraid, they're afraid to come out here and tell the truth. This is why they're going to lose, right? They're just as bad as the progressive left. And this is why I say that the true centrist that can save the Democrat Party is going to be the first guy that comes out and unapologetically says, no, we're against the woke agenda. We're going to actively be against it. We're going to actively vote against it because that is where the American people are right now. And that is just the reality of the situation. Also, on top of that, it's just the right thing to do, right? When you talk about fairness in sports, take the politics out of it. It's just not fair for biological boys to compete against biological girls in sports. All of these people know this, but again, they're just so captured by the far left ideology that they're afraid. A lot of them are afraid to stand up to the far left of the party, okay? And you see what happens when you even come out and you say, all right, let's be neutral. You get absolutely destroyed for it in the Democrat Party, right? When you say, let's be neutral on an issue that's not helping us, you get destroyed by the far left, right? The far left, they get really upset. Okay, they claim that you're bullying trans kids, and you're trying to make it about trans kids, and you're obsessed with trans kids, and it's like, no. You guys are the ones that are obsessed with this issue. This wouldn't be an issue if you guys weren't pushing a far left agenda, right? If you weren't pushing the issue, then you wouldn't have the right pushing back because there would be nothing to push back against because the left has opened up the door for a lot of this stuff. Yes, you have the right pushing back, and they try to frame that as that, well, the right wingers are being weird. Why are they so obsessed with this issue? And basically what they do is that they're trying to guilt trip conservatives into basically just letting the left get away with whatever they want, right, when it comes to their agenda. And it's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to sit idly by while you allow this stuff to happen that the American people don't agree with. No, we're not going to do that. Okay, we're going to push back against it. And 80% of the American people are on board with us when it comes to this, right? So again, Democrats got a choice. The so-called Democrats that want to run as centrists, this neutral thing, this, well, we should ignore it, let's stop talking about it thing, that's not going to cut it, right? You're either with 80% of American people or you're not, right? Or you're against them. You got to choose a side because this neutral thing is just not going to help you out. Again, as you can see, the far left is not okay with neutrality. And personally, as a conservative, I'm not okay with neutrality either. So again, people like Rahm Emanuel, although again, I think that he is speaking some truth about this issue and how it negatively affects the Democrat Party. What he's missing is the fact that, again, it's not enough to just be neutral to say, let's not talk about it, let's not focus on it. You have to actively push back against the woke agenda, or else you're complicit, in my view, right? So choose a side, right? Choose a side. A real so-called centrist Democrat would have no issues aligning with 80% of the American people. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.